Thank you very much, Carrie, for that very warm introduction. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. I am extremely excited to be back with you this year to restart again our Transforming to Agile PMO, the Transforming to Agile webinar series. Transforming to an Agile PMO is actually one of the webinars that's upcoming, and it's been on my mind. So I'm very excited to welcome you personally, and I hope that you will get the benefits that you're looking for out of this webinar series. And of course, you know how we do this, which is to get you engaged, to have you answer questions with us, and I will stay after the webinar to answer any questions that you have that were not addressed throughout. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's webinar will be on success factors when transforming to Agile. And I thought this would be a great topic to start the year with, because a lot of organizations are either considering a move to Agile or already in their Agile adoption. As you know, PMI themselves have just released their new PMI Agile certification that was in the pilot mode last year, and it will really be kicking off this year and for the next several years. So what I thought about is, wouldn't it be nice if I could sort of share with you some real-world challenges and best practices and recommendations for, regardless of what stage of your Agile adoption you're at, how can you ensure the success of Agile adoption. So let's get started. This is a little bit about me. I think most of you have this background. So Sally Elatta, again, I'm President of Agile Transformation. What you might not know, and sorry the slide is not well formatted. I'm not sure why we're having trouble with formatting this specific slide, but the background that you might not know is I'm actually a technical person, so I come from the Java and the .NET software architecture side. I did that for several years and programmed and tested and wrote requirements and all of that before, I think it's about 8-9 years ago now that I've started to move over to the Agile leadership transformation and high-performance transformation. So I've trained thousands of people and helped coach so many different companies, and my whole model is to provide real-world and practical advice, and that's what our company does. So this is your part. I want to have a workshop with you real quickly. And since you're not in front of me in person, what I wanted to do is just have you think about this and then post in the chat what have been some of your top challenges to adopting Agile within your organization. If you have already been doing Agile, or if you've been thinking about it, what have been some of the top challenges or barriers to your adoption? If you have not done Agile yet and just considering it, what challenges do you think you're going to face? So again, just start posting. I'll just give you about 30 seconds or 40 seconds to share your thoughts with us. Estimating and budgeting. Frequency of meetings. Explaining the cost and benefit. Not sure we will even adopt Agile. Okay. Sprint timings. Interesting. Leadership lack of understanding of the actual process. Combining projects and programs. Okay. Inconsistent rollout. No executive buy-in. Product owners not really getting involved. Maintaining the client's involvement, business willing to collaborate, no clear understanding in the organization, lack of cross-functional teams, a moving target on each sprint, people looking at it as a few cute tricks. That's a funny one. No customer focus, no user or product owner buy-in on the approach. Okay. No support from management. All right, so these are very good. So those are coming from the real world. For those of you that have been doing Agile or adopting Agile, these are some of the real world challenges. And they're very real. So let me share with you at least some quick statistics. If you guys are familiar with version 1 is a tool vendor, and they're very famous for some of their Agile surveys that they run each year. And this is from the 2011. So I guess before we talk about the problems with Agile adoption, maybe we should talk about why organizations are moving to Agile. What are the reasons for adopting Agile? And if you look over here, and of course you can download this specific survey, and I actually have it in the final download. When you download this presentation in the zip file, this complete survey will be part of it. But if you just look at the top 5, the main drivers for adopting Agile has been accelerating time to market, and that has stayed number 1 consistently throughout all the years. What does accelerate time to market means? It means that companies are moving to Agile because they need to get their products out the door faster. They can't wait for a year or 2 years. Some companies don't even want to wait for 6 months or 8 months. They need quicker delivery to market, right? Managing changing priorities has actually been a huge advantage and driver for Agile, which is the idea that when the business wants to change their mind, usually traditional approaches call that scope creep. They say that wasn't in the contract, we didn't sign off on that. And so Agile promises that as long as they will continue to engage, and there's the important underline, as long as they will continue to engage in continuous prioritization, we will allow changing of their requirements, because our goal as an Agile team is to meet their business value and deliver what they really need. Increasing in productivity has been a goal, which some people, and I don't know if this is really true or not, but they think, if I can move to Agile, I'm going to get stuff done faster, quicker, cheaper. I don't know if all that is really accurate. You may actually definitely increase time to market. Some Agile teams, and you'll actually see it in the survey, really have performed and delivered faster, and I think that really goes to the time to market. But the biggest driver for Agile is the whole idea of productivity. It's not necessarily only about speed, but it's that we're doing the right things and we're cutting out waste. So the team will start focusing on doing the right stuff, communicating, and starting to break some of these silos and a lot of that wasteful back and forth. So productivity increases, in my opinion, specifically just because of that reduction in waste. Better alignment of IT and business has been huge, which is obviously IT organizations, technology organizations. They start to really understand that the business begins to drive these projects in terms of the value that they need out of the projects. So IT in general becomes more aligned with business strategic goals and objectives. And there's so many different levels of planning in Agile, but you'll see that it all starts with strategic planning and then aligning all the projects and all the initiatives with that final strategic plan. And of course, quality is huge with Agile Adoption, that you'll see some pretty dramatic and drastic changes in terms of defects and bugs, especially if you employ some of the engineering practices like extreme programming. This is a fact, and we were just talking about this in one of my other sessions. That pre-release iteration, the iteration right before you move to production, becomes the most boring iteration in Agile because there's no bugs and defects. It's very minor changes and fixes to make, as opposed to our typical traditional process of going through this huge bug fix phase at the end. So these are some of the reasons that organizations have wanting to move to Agile. The survey also does highlight what is actually the benefits that were actually obtained from Agile. And it's interesting, many of them are very similar to what they were hoping for. The one that I always like, the two that are different, that people weren't, predicting at the beginning, but they've actually realized it, is the improved project visibility. So, and I can tell you, there are so many organizations that I've coached, that's been actually their reason for moving to Agile. What they'll come to us with is a problem of, we've got large projects, they're multi-year, we have no idea what's really going on. We have no idea where they really are at. We don't know if we're going to make it or not make it. And so Agile sort of added this layer of visibility and tracking in a very organized way, in a very iterative planning framework method for how they're going to actually see, inspect, and adapt what's really going on. The other one that I like is the improved team morale. Some organizations come to Agile because the bottom line, I'm going to save dollars or get something out the door faster. But in my opinion, the organizations that also understand the people side of the Agile transformation are the ones that are really going to benefit the most value out of Agile. And improvement in team morale, cultural transformation towards more positive, fun, high-performing, engaged community, that's just been like the icing on the cake. But in my opinion, a lot of organizations that focus on that and know how to foster that new culture are the ones that are going to see the most drastic benefits out of Agile. So more statistics to empower you in terms of understanding why organizations are moving to Agile. 67% have found that it improved frequency of releases, productivity, reduction in cost, and there's some various statistics here. But I think one important one I wanted to share with you is Gartner predicts that 80% of all software projects will be moving to Agile within the next few years. And PMIs move themselves which PMI has been the big gorilla, right? When PMI moves and adopts something, it really means that the industry will. And that's also been a very big pusher. So now that we understand sort of here's the drivers behind Agile adoption, let's talk about some of the challenges and possible failure modes with Agile. So again, from version 1's perspective, when they did this survey and they said what have been some of the leading causes of failed Agile projects within your organization, what really excited me is to see that, first of all, the first couple of scenarios over here said 16% said, well, we actually haven't failed with Agile, which is good. Some people said, well, I really don't know. Probably their projects are going well. But when you look at the other ones down over here, lack of experience and lack of knowledge with Agile methods, lack of understanding of the broader organization change requirement. And I think one person was also submitting that as people don't understand the larger transformation really that's behind Agile. Company philosophy or culture at odds with Agile values, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. And then external pressure for waterfall, new to Agile, haven't completed a project. Some of these really, if I could even summarize them, it's some of it is the resistance to change or the misunderstanding or not enough knowledge about what Agile really is. So those were sort of the top ones that were at the top over here. Some additional barriers to Agile adoption was the ability to change the organizational culture, ability to find people with the right skills, just general resistance. Management support was not there, like a couple people also shared this. And some misunderstanding that Agile doesn't scale, that Agile doesn't apply to large projects, which really tickles me when I hear that, because I think you could not do a large project without Agile. I think that, no, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can't, and projects have never succeeded without Agile, but when you understand Agile and you understand the risk associated with larger projects, it's just a perfect fit to have that much visibility, that much coordination, that much communication, that much demos and inspection and adaptation. To me, when these projects are higher risk this way, those have been the ones that we've also used Agile for. Now, I wouldn't recommend those being the pilot. You don't start there. But definitely there's a lack of understanding on how Agile scales. So those are some of the common barriers. So I've sort of summarized from my own experience, from the surveys from version 1, from speaking to different people out there, what I believe are the top 6 challenges with Agile adoption, and then I'm going to go through and talk about each one of them for you. So the no executive management buy-in or support is an issue. A lot of you already shared this, which is that your customers, your business folks, your product owners, have not bought in to Agile, or they have not agreed to collaborate or to engage in Agile projects. There's, again, we talked about the resistance to change in general, the lack of knowledge and experience, the lack of servant leadership. And we will talk about this one. This is one of my favorite topics. And then team collaboration skills, and yes, this is my next favorite topic also, multitasking, lack of portfolio prioritization, and lack of stability within teams. I cannot tell you how important this is. One of our upcoming webinars will be transforming to an Agile PMO, where we will really dig deeper into this whole conversation around how we do business today, how we prioritize, and what Agile and Lean portfolio management could really do to help us. So let's take the first one. Executive management support. What is the problem? The problem is Agile, in some occasions, has started in some companies bottom up. It's a bottom-up movement where a few managers, a few team members, maybe a really excited project manager figured out a way to get enough buy-in for Agile to happen on their project. The problem is it's continuing to grow more as a grassroots movement, and executives and managers don't understand it. They don't support it. They don't get the big picture. And so without meaning to, they continue to sometimes become impediments to actual successful Agile transformation. My recommendation and general best practices out there is, number one, I think you need to have early education on Agile adoption for the executive management team. It doesn't mean that you have to do it before the pilot starts. That would be great if you can get their buy-in from the very beginning. We have worked in companies where we have done a few pilots, And after we've gathered success from the pilots, and you can see the excitement, and you can see the actual value delivery, and the business is engaged, and there's good news to share, then we've had executive overview sessions. So you can do it again from the very beginning, or you can do it, but you do need to do it. You can't just continue Agile adoption and see high-level success and real success with it continuing to be a bottom-up movement. You do want to find an executive sponsor and find someone who really understands this, who will be the internal change agent and the advocate. And you might find a couple, 2 or 3. Some companies that have been very successful with Agile adoption have actually had 2 or 3 or 4 executive sponsors. We've always started with 1, and of course my favorite is when we can start with a CIO level person. And then it's slowly, you actually find business executives that are also willing to champion Agile and stand behind it, because we really need them to be active in terms of rolling out Agile. Develop a transformation vision and roadmap. This is really important. Again, some companies, they don't understand that Agile, there's multiple levels of Agile maturity and adoption. And just getting a couple of pilots to succeed doesn't mean that you're there. You haven't just arrived by getting some pilots to succeed. So having some vision behind, first of all, why are you going to Agile? What are the benefits? Yeah, we just showed the survey that talks about the various benefits, but what about for your specific company? What problems are you trying to solve? And how will you measure where you are right now and where you really want to be, just to even know if Agile adoption has done anything for you? So that measurement aspect is also very important in case someone says 3 years from now, what's this all about and why are we doing it? And having a roadmap that says, in the next year, here's our goal. We're going to pilot about 3 different pilot teams, 3 different projects. We're going to educate our executives and sponsors and probably our product owners on Agile. And we're going to see if we can at least do 1 offshore project using Agile. Next year, here's some of the key areas that we're going to try to focus on. Following year, here's the process, other improvements that we're going to make. And I'm not scaring you, but Agile does take several years. You're going to see some benefits immediately from beginning to adopt Agile, but Agile itself is not the goal, believe it or not. It's really Agile and all these methods that we'll talk about. They're a way for you to achieve high performance. It's a way for you to build high-performing teams and a high-performing organization. And so it takes different steps, and it takes strategic thinking and strategic planning around combining people and process transformation skills. So I'm talking a lot here about the vision and roadmap, but I can't emphasize it enough that there needs to be some thought-out plan for how you want to do this. And of course, the plan adjusts, and that's okay. Establish an Agile champions team with a transformation backlog. And this is a recommendation and something that we always do with various clients is you need to find an internal champions team. You definitely want that executive sponsor or several executive sponsors to be engaged in that. But this is the group of individuals, and they could be at different levels and from different roles. A small team that is going to make sure that this transformation will stick and it will be successful and that the various teams will be supported. And this transformation team, the Agile Champions team, will have a backlog of process improvements. Here's what we need to do next. Here's education that we need. We need to create a wiki for our community so that people understand Agile. Let's go ahead and reach out to the infrastructure team and help them understand Agile. Let's help and support this one pilot project because they're starting to fall apart and the Scrum Master doesn't know Agile, and let's see what we can do to coach and help them. The backlog of work that the champion team will have is all related to process improvement and Agile adoption and the success with it. And of course, you would execute that backlog in an Agile fashion. So you'll create sprints and have the team actually engage and maybe even create a wall. And this has been very successful. So the last thing that I'm recommending to solve this problem is executive level coaching on Agile. Whether you find internal experts or external experts, executives might understand the higher vision behind what they want to achieve, but they might not know how do I really get there. And so some level of initial coaching or quarterly coaching or something to help guide the organization as it goes through this is usually very important, very necessary. I wanted to share with you some of the transformation steps, at least the way we look at it, which is when companies are starting, they're really piloting Agile, and the goal behind piloting, and this could happen within 6 months, 8 months, could be a whole year, where you're still just piloting Agile. And this is where you pick a few projects, and your main goal is just to prove that Agile actually works for you, to get the buy-in, to show the value, and begin to identify and address some of the organizational impediments and obstacles that are going to be in the way. So just begin to even figure out, and some of them, they're not bad things. It's just when we did traditional development, for example, we didn't set up our test environments and our test server until the end of the project. With Agile, you're going to find that teams need a test server and a test environment early and often. They need it very quickly. And so that's going to possess a challenge for the infrastructure team in terms of how can they understand Agile enough, how can they use virtualization, things like that so they can support it. That's just one example. You're going to see that Agile is different in terms of the level of collaboration that's needed, and that teams want to sit next to each other as much as feasible. You're going to run into an issue where that's not the way that you've done it before. So how do you begin to address that? That's really what we mean by identify and address obstacles. There are several different things that need to change, and you as an organization, Agile will really just expose all that, and then you'll have to make decisions. The next step is scaling Agile, and this is where you decide, you know what, this works, we got it. This is definitely healthy. We can see how this is going to help us deliver, better software. And I know I keep talking about Agile software, but Agile has been used in so many projects that are non-software. So I want to make sure I say that and I emphasize that, because we've got a ton of clients already using Agile for non-IT related projects at all, just completely within the business area. But basically you've seen that Agile works, and now you're trying to scale it up to larger programs, distributed teams, bigger projects, multiple, and you're trying to figure out how to solve that piece of the puzzle, which is, okay, how do I scale Agile? How do I use it at a larger level? This is also the phase where the organization begins to want to create some level of standards, some guidelines, some best practices, and we're always in Agile, we like standards and best practices, we just don't want too many of them to where the team cannot themselves be empowered to make some decisions. So again, if you're a large company, you need some level of standards and best practices around Agile, but you don't want to hinder the team's ability to also create their own task wall the way that they want to. An example of some of these standards and best practices is we decide that all teams need to use the point system, story points. They need to show some level of burn-up charts, and they all should have a consistent backlog. And they all should have, these are the things we're coming up with basically to make sure that we're doing it in a similar way, but it doesn't have to be the same, if that makes sense. The third level of maturity is where you begin to realize as an organization that this is not just about Agile, and that all of these methods are starting to come together, whether it's Agile or Lean or Kanban or even what you've had in Six Sigma. There are all ways to achieve higher performance throughout the organization. And you begin to realize that this is also a people transformation. And so one of the biggest transformations, I believe, or the biggest ahas that are going to happen is when you begin to think and consider the idea of stable teams. Stable teams means that instead of the very matrixed multitasking, everyone's working on 10 projects at the same time, people are being borrowed here and there, you begin to think about your enterprise capacity in terms of teams and instead of individuals and hours. And again, that will be the topic of our next webinar, which is the transforming to an Agile PMO. But when you begin to think that way, we will start to transform how you do portfolio prioritization, how you actually have teams execute. You'll begin to create communities of practice to make Agile stick throughout the organization, because you're going to get a lot of excitement at the beginning when you're doing training and coaching and you've got the pilots going, but then you have to have a really good formula for making Agile stick within the organization. So these are just a quick overview for you of the 3 levels of Agile maturity that we've normally seen. And here's a quick example, I won't go through this one in detail, of if you are coming up with a roadmap, when you're piloting, maybe these are some of the goals that you would have. Let's just do some education, build some internal champion team, create a couple stable teams, get some of the pilots actually going. When I'm scaling, this is where I'm going to get in. Honestly, I would actually prefer that the business customers, the product owner training happen while you're piloting. This is where you could do a little bit more transformation around requirements, engineering practices, soft skills, applying it to large programs. And then enterprise transformation is where, again, you're really looking at cross-department education on Agile, probably building more enterprise-level stable teams. This is just, again, an example of what a roadmap could look like. Customer buy-in is a challenge that a lot of companies have, and obviously the problem is business customers, whether they're internal or external, they don't understand Agile, they're not willing to collaborate and engage. To me, it's all an education problem. You can't just, I've been to companies where they'll say, go ahead and train the whole IT department on Agile or this department, but then I don't see the customers, the product owners are not actually coming into any of it. And then all of a sudden I'm going to hear complaints from the team about how their product owner is not coming to the stand-ups or they're not willing to spend their time. Well, you haven't given them the chance to understand what this is about. Believe me, trust me, when your business customers understand and apply Agile correctly, they will own Agile. It will even become beyond your control, because I actually have sponsors right now, project sponsors that say, I will not do a project if it's not going to be in Agile, because that's the only way that I can ensure success and have visibility into what's really going on. So, education, education, education. Please explain to them what this is about. Give them the chance to understand their new role. The Agile product owner role is different from a traditional sponsor role. We still have our sponsors, but you now have this idea of this one product owner who has to make final decisions on the backlog and prioritize, where they do need to engage with the team. That's going to change some of their time management, right? Some of their time commitment and allocation to other things that they're doing. And without this consensus in education, it's going to be hard. So make sure that the first product owners that you pick are the right ones. So this is my recommendation. If you're piloting Agile, make sure that you've got knowledgeable, empowered, and engaged product owners picked for the pilot, because those are the ones that you can say later on, it looks like that. Success as a product owner looks like James over there. Did you see what Karen did on that project? Did you understand what Sarah did? She played a really good product owner role. She was knowledgeable, empowered, and engaged with the team. So you want to have a good role model example from the start. Again, with the business side, if you can get excitement, if you can share success, if you can create positive energy, that will also be great. And you'll, I mean, again, like I mentioned, they will not want to do projects any differently once they do this the right way. And then another recommendation is to establish a product owner community of practice. And this is a community, you'll hear me talk a lot about communities of practice, but this is an internal community, just like that champions team. Their goal in life is to help educate other product owners, probably led by some product owners, but anyone can join the community. They have a backlog of things to do related to product owner engagement, helping provide more awareness, coming up with, sample schedules for when product owners are needed. Obviously, your number one goal is if you can get product owners to be fully engaged and co-located with the team and be there 100% of their time. That's perfect. That's what you want. And I believe it or not, there are some product owners that do that. But there are other organizations where the product owner might not have 100% commitment and dedication time. And so how do you work around that, and what are some of the ways to do that? So the community of practice really is a way to share best practices. Now, the next challenge is resistance to change. So in Agile, there's going to be various roles within your organization that would rather stick with the status quo. Look, we've been doing this the way that we've been doing it for the last 35 years. Why am I supposed to transform to this whole Agile thing? This is just, again, the latest new buzzword. It's the latest fad. It's not really going to stick. I don't really want to learn anything new. I love the way that I've been doing it. So what do you do here? Education, education, education. So it's going to start with early education on the benefits of Agile for the organization. I really, really believe that you need to get the people's buy-in. It doesn't mean you can't do Agile until every single person buys in, but I have seen some companies just jump into Agile and actually do it in a very command and control way, which is really interesting. It's almost like an oxymoron. But they've just said, go Agile or else. Do Agile or you shall be fired. I don't know if that's the best way to get Agile adoption. I think some level of education for people, even if it's just 2-3 hour seminars for everyone, getting some excitement, getting the pilots going, getting people to engage and buy in, getting them involved, doing tours. We've done this really successfully where we have different people come in and tour from different other departments and look at the team collaboration rooms, look at how teams are working, hear from them their excitement, instead of selling Agile top down and just saying, you shall do Agile because I said so. Why don't you have them, engage them in the process so that they see the value of it? So executive leadership support and frequent communication of the vision has been extremely important. So getting people, like we've had a very successful, in my opinion, one of the most strategic CIOs that we've worked with, and she has been so engaged in terms of talking to people about the vision, explaining why, removing impediments, walking into collaboration rooms, how can we help, what else do you guys need? Those have been town hall meetings and sessions. And it really works when you can do it that way because people know that there's full support throughout the organization for it. I also think that we need to give people the benefit of the doubt. There are some people that don't want to do Agile not because they hate it, but because they are scared of doing something that they're not familiar with. They are excellent at requirements gathering using the traditional way. They are excellent at development and execution. They're excellent testers using traditional methods, but they just don't know how to do it in Agile, and they don't want to look bad, and they don't want to screw up, basically. So I think you need to be aware of that and plan for that early on and say, what am I going to do to help skill these individual roles on how Agile will work for them and give them the confidence and the comfort that they need. Communicate, celebrate, and reward Agile success. We already talked about that. And remove impediments early and often. And this is what I call walk the walk. Don't just talk the talk. Don't just ask people to change when you're not willing to change. And when I say you, I'm talking about anyone at any level. We talk about Agile is about removing impediments and empowerment. And it's really easy to talk about all that and then tell people to go do it. But when the leaders themselves are not doing it, when the Scrum Masters or the project managers are still using traditional command and control methods, it's just going to start to fall apart. So remove impediments, address problems, continuously inspect and adapt. And of course, we're going to continue to talk about communities of practice. I've seen successful communities of practice around, engineering practices, requirements gathering, community of practice that's just focused on improving requirements. And so any area that needs improvement, you could launch a little mini community of practice around it. Lack of experience with Agile. So organization, they're trying to adopt Agile methods, but don't have enough experience on how to make it succeed. Again, this is just going to be the same thing. It's about education. I really do think that whether you find internal or external experts to help coach you, that would be a wise investment. If you have someone internally that is an expert that's been doing Agile, helping and engaging that person in terms of coaching other people is really important. I mean, Agile is not as simple as it sounds, even though when you understand the basic principles of Agile, it does seem common sense. It does seem easy, but it will be hard because of it's really sort of untangling a lot of stuff that we've been doing before. And it does require a lot of change management and ability to influence Agile adoption the right way. So hire some qualified, skilled, experienced Scrum Masters, coaches, create an internal community of coaches where once you get the pilots going and you've got some really good experienced people, allow them to coach other Scrum Masters that are just in training. Build an Agile Knowledge Wiki site to share best practices, and I'm going to show you an example of techniques for doing that. And then allow new teams to shadow other teams. So, have this whole open door policy. When teams are set up in collaboration rooms, allow other teams that are new, or even just new team members, to come in and see how Agile's been working for them. I wanted to show you, and I got permission for this. This was from one of my favorite clients, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Nebraska, and their IS delivery management team has, in my opinion, done an amazing job evangelizing Agile, communicating it, marketing for it. These are two posters that they actually have 3 posters. They created these posters as a way to communicate the message about Agile and to create a buzz factor. And they actually, I think they had them posted for like a month throughout the entire company. Seriously, like every level I would go to, they would have these big posters framed and what Agile is about, and it created a huge buzz. I mean, people were starting to ask, and who's doing this, and how do I find out more? And if you can see right over here at the bottom, it says in blue, Departments Corp, there's an Agile Works, and Agile Works is a wiki that they've created to show videos and tutorials, and this is what Agile means, and here's how you get started, and here's how you can communicate with us, and here's how we can help you. So I thought this was really awesome. And one of the most important parts of what Agile is about that they emphasized here, and again, the CIO there has really been awesome in terms of, I use this quote from her many times. She said, Agile is not about post-it notes and stand-ups. Agile is a way of thinking, and that's why it's number one over here. It's not really, there's a lot of companies that will adopt Agile, what I call checklist Agile, which is let's have the stand-up meetings, let's do the planning meeting, let's put all these post-it notes on the wall, or use one of the fancy tools. That's all great, but if you haven't understood that Agile is a change in mindset, it's a different way of thinking about how we work together, and that's, in my opinion, why Agile can be applied to any industry, to any project, regardless whether it's software or not. It is a way of thinking about organizing your backlog. And so regardless of what your industry is right now, what I'm going to ask you is, what is your backlog? What are your deliverables? If you could tell me what your deliverables are, what do you expect to get done? If you could help prioritize and order them and rank them the right way, if you could then help take some of these deliverables and begin to break them down into smaller deliverables and tell me about who are the right people that need to engage and collaborate to get it done, you're basically using Agile, right? Agile is a way of thinking. So anyway, just wanted to share these couple of posters with you. Servant leadership and collaboration skills, extremely important. What is the problem we're trying to solve here? Leaders are still using command and control to lead. Team members are used to working in silos, and they're new to this whole idea of cross-functional collaboration. I don't know if this sounds familiar to you or not, but traditional management courses and leadership courses, and even for project managers, have really emphasized this idea of being directive and telling people what to do. And I'm not saying all courses are this way, but I've definitely seen that trend of once you become the boss, people report to you and you tell them what to do and you direct them every step of the way. Well, Agile's a bit different. Agile, we still believe in, obviously, leadership, but we call it servant leadership. Servant leadership is this idea of empowering people and understanding that you are a leader. You still need to make decisions, obviously. You should provide a vision for what you want to get done. You should provide very clear acceptance criteria. We'll also call it a definition of done for when it's done, what it should look like. But you should learn to empower people and bring out the best in them in terms of figuring out how they get there. Micromanaging, no, you got to do it the specific way, that doesn't work. It begins to kill the culture of Agile itself, and that's where you end up with what I call checklist Agile adoption. The culture is really not there. People are still zombies. They're just following orders, and all that innovation, all of that high performance, honestly, empowered Agile teams can outdo 10 micromanaged teams, because they just come up with the best ways for getting work done. You are still leading them. You are still providing a vision. You are still providing clear measures for success, but you are allowing that team to be empowered to figure out how they're going to execute. And of course there's boundaries. People always say, well, you're scaring me, Sally. Does this mean that teams are going to go haywire and do whatever they want to? Of course not. There are boundaries. There's organizational boundaries that need to be adhered to. There's enterprise architectural standards. We've already purchased these tools and these technologies. We have already decided we're going to use this vendor. Things that the team will need to work within these boundaries. These are our standards. But within there, still learn how to empower. So that's servant leadership, and so my recommendation obviously would be education and training on the value of servant leadership and empowerment for all leaders. And it's not just what this is, because a lot of people start there. They'll say, here's what servant leadership is about, now go do it. I have found it to be very challenging for people to just go do it. They want to know, show me how. Like, show me, I don't have a problem with this now that I understand what we're trying to do. Show me, how do I switch from being more directive into being more empowered? And just a quick example I'll give you is one of the techniques we always talk about is ask, don't tell. Instead of telling people what to do, ask questions. Instead of saying, I disagree, I don't think that's the right decision to make, I really want us to go with option B, you can just say, all right, guys, these are some good options. What do you think about the pros and cons of option B versus option A? Let's talk about that a little bit more. So, not just what is servant leadership, but explain how people can transform. And this will take time and it will take patience because it is a journey. But trust me, it will be well worth it. Education and training for teams on collaboration skills, conflict resolution, team norms, effective facilitation. This has also been huge. And again, the very strategic executives have been the ones that have figured this out from the beginning. That the sooner they begin to invest in their people, the sooner they begin to invest in helping people break silos between them, establish trust between teams. And honestly, when you're first doing Agile in waterfall or traditional organizations, you'll find that a lot of teams told themselves stories about other teams. The development team thinks the testing team is the roadblock to everything. The BA team thinks the developers think the BAs or the analysts are not giving requirements at the right time. I mean, there's just all these stories throughout the whole organization. And you're breaking through all that. You're saying we're all going to have to work together as one team. So we're going to, first of all, have to flush all these stories. Second of all, need to learn how to communicate without being aggressive, without having confrontation, or without hiding our feelings, and have healthy communication skills. And we need to start facilitating more effective meetings. Someone, I think, already posted that there's way too many meetings with Agile. And you're right. Agile is about collaboration. And you'll see that we don't even like to call them meetings anymore. We like to call them working sessions. Because the idea is that we don't come together and discuss stuff. We're supposed to be coming together to get work done and make decisions and break down work and write acceptance criteria and collaborate on design. So, my recommendation is you got to improve the effectiveness of meetings. I mean, some people say, how does this tie to Agile? Of course it ties to Agile. If you don't know how to effectively get value out of your meetings right now, you're just going to have even a bigger problem. And I think, honestly, meetings have been one of the biggest waste factors in a lot of companies that we've coached. It's just been overwhelming. I mean, meeting after meeting after meeting, and people are like double and triple booked, and they're not getting results out of them. So yes, it will become a problem, and it needs to be addressed, and I really think strategic leaders will consider this up front. Leaders should be role models. They should walk the walk and not just talk the talk. And what I mean by that is all the stuff we're talking about, you need to find leaders that believe in it, in their heart, are genuine about it, are authentic, and want to really see this organization succeed, are willing to let go of any political turf wars they've had, are willing to see that this is about an enterprise level movement towards high performance. And, I'm just going to drop all the stories I had about that other VP in that other department and begin to work together and sort of, give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and start to flesh some of these older stories. Even if they were real, it's okay. We need to get past it because it's about delivering value right now. And so when those leaders begin to walk the walk and become role models, you will see everyone else will follow. If the leaders within the organization themselves are still very political, are still very my way or the highway, no, we don't want to work with that other department, we just need to do it our way, I don't like this team, I don't like that other team. People like to mimic whatever the leaders are doing. So just remember that. So, you want to create healthy role models, obviously. Recognize and reward healthy collaborative teams. So when teams are collaborating, when they're doing well, when they're healthy, when they've got great team norms, talk about them. And when I say reward, I'm not talking about financial reward. I'm sure they would love that, but I actually have a whole opinion on financial rewarding. But celebrate their success. Talk about them in the town hall meeting. Send an email with how great it is. Take pictures of how they're collaborating and how much fun they're having and how much story points they're getting done and their burn-up charts and share it with the whole team. Let someone who's an executive level say thank you to them personally. Just simple stuff like that. That goes a long way. And of course, coaching. To really achieve this transformation from a people perspective, you need to coach. You need to learn how to coach. You need to be open to being coached, because this is important and this is the heart of it. And I think the famous CIO that I'm always going to be talking about, because she's one of the best strategic leaders I've had the honor of working with, she said, the whole Agile transformation for them has been 80% or 90% about people transforming, and then 10-20% about the process. And this is the picture that I wanted to share in terms of this is what you're really trying to do. You're taking people that used to work in their own silos and hand off work to each other. And you're trying to create cross-functional teams that can work on one target. And so the impediments to reaching that are numerous from a collaboration perspective, from an empowerment, from a trust, but also even just mechanically on how to get these people to talk to each other, to sit next to each other, to collaborate distributedly if you don't have co-located teams. What technology are you going to start using? We want more collaboration for distributed teams instead of even less. So we still want the daily meetings. We need video conferencing. We need the teams to be sitting in team rooms. How are you going to make all that happen? That's all important. Agile and Lean portfolio management, creating stable teams. So what problem are we trying to solve here? This should be familiar to you. The problem is working on too many projects all at the same time. Everyone is multitasking and working on 2 or 3 different things, if not 4 or 5. I actually had a project manager one time that showed me their list of projects they manage, and it was like 25. And they said, these are all active projects that I'm managing. And I just said, you got to be kidding me. You really have to be kidding me. How does anyone expect you to effectively manage 25 projects all running at the same time? What kind of project management are they looking for? I mean, that's what I would call very light touch, status updates, I've got the reports running type project management. So, all this the problem that it causes is very hard to focus, no clear strategic priorities. We're trying to get everything done now. Recommendations in this area. You want to have early education on Agile Lean portfolio prioritization and management. And again, come to our next webinar, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Build an enterprise or portfolio level ranked backlog. What I mean by this is, you have to have some visibility of what projects are going on in your company. And this sounds easy, or it sounds straightforward. I cannot tell you how many organizations are struggling with this right now. There's too many things going on, and there's not a place to see it. And I would split that enterprise portfolio in terms of strategic projects, obviously, that needs to be funded. And of course, there's the minor enhancements and modifications. So that is different. That's a different backlog, right? I'm talking more about those strategic process improvement projects, things that are costing us some money. Do you have a list of them? Are they prioritized? Are they ranked top down? So that's really important. And then align those projects with strategic value drivers. Make sure that the stuff that's going on right now in your organization aligns back with some strategic objectives. Create some filters that say, you know what, if you don't meet these specific qualifications, for example, an Agile filter is, if I don't even have a product owner who's willing to engage on this project, if this project does not deliver value directly related to a specific strategic objective, if this project is not broken down into a small enough chunk that can actually be delivered in 3 to 6 months, why are you doing it? Because that's probably a high-risk project, or it has no value. So build stable teams, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our next webinar, and then allow teams to pull. So this whole slide over here, we'll talk more in our next webinar. I just wanted to show you. And you know what, because we're running out of time, I will also share this one in the Agile Portfolio Management, the cost of multitasking, how it's your #1 killer, and this view of portfolio teams will all be in our next webinar. And here's an example of how to build stable teams. So this will all be good for our next Transforming to an Agile PMO webinar. I hope you've enjoyed our chat today. I'm going to be answering questions here, but I wanted to just show you, here's the list of our upcoming webinars: Transforming to an Agile PMO, Agile Portfolio Planning with Kanban, a journey through the Agile life cycle. This will take you beginning to end. This one will focus Agile requirements gathering more on the requirement side of Agile. A day in the life of an Agile team will take you into what teams are actually doing on a day-to-day basis within an iteration. And then the PMI ACP certification update, since that's very popular, we'll give you an update. We've hosted Rory McCorkle a couple times last year. We might have him back again to talk about the update on that exam and where PMI is going with that. Agile release planning and estimating is a popular one, and we can even push that one a little bit earlier on how do you estimate Agile projects. And then, of course, my favorite, the people side of an Agile transformation. So let's go ahead and take some questions right now. And by the way, you can download all of what I just showed you, plus some from tinyurl.com/agile training. I've got the adoption roadmap, cheat sheets, and I hope that you would register for our upcoming webinars from our Learning and Education Community Practice page. So let's go ahead and look at questions.